If he snored at night, he'd snore sprint car sounds.
They're side by side on the back of the grid, Roger Gleeson and Barry Butterworth.
I was a bag of nerves all week, I couldn't work and I was battling, but,
Well, here we are, our first episode of Methanol Madness, an idea formed one night in the track shack over far too many drinks, and just like magic, it's appeared. But in all seriousness, the show is designed to support and promote Ruapuna Speedway and the open wheel classes, and occasionally it will stretch its legs and take in some international coverage and watch our local races racing around New Zealand. A quick mention to our Auckland supporters. It's good to have you here watching the show. We know racing's pretty tough for you guys, nothing happening at Western Springs. We hope you enjoy the show that we're putting on, and you might like to tune into the live streaming we have from the track. And our first meeting is this Saturday, 6th of November at Ruapuna Speedway. Joining me here as the co-host of Methanol Madness is the voice of Ruapuna Speedway, AJ Batt. AJ, welcome, and that was some crazy idea we put together.
It was a crazy idea, but it's just great to be here, and let's just keep adding to the Speedway experience. It's all part of the deal, and yeah, we are very much thinking about our mates up there in Auckland, but boy, it's going to be red hot action down here this summer.
Yeah, we've got a big season this year, at least 10 events, a couple of double weekends, but what are the highlights for you, and what can our viewers expect to see?
I'm really looking forward to the New Zealand Sprint Car Championships in February. In March, we've got a very big show with the New Zealand Midget Car Grand Prix, the Sprint Car Gold Cup and the goodies, some North Island TQs. But perhaps the thing that's really going to have me stuck in the seat is the local competition. I think we're in for a stellar season. The numbers up are pretty much right across the board. A lot of youth, a lot of experience, and a lot of guys that are stuck right in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to the New Zealand Sprint Car Championship, and that's going to be a highlight. But it's Carnival Fireworks for me, AJ. That was something that was run last year for the first time at Ruapuna, and wow, what a success. Over 3,000 people attended, and I think the way that the politics are around the country at the moment, we're most likely to fill the stadium on that 20th of November when it comes up. Yeah,
I think so too, and the whole concept's about that family experience. Go out and have some family fun, watch some really good dirt track racing, but also one of the real highlights from last year was stepping out of the announcer's box and hearing people screaming as they were on those sideshows and so on. It sort of took me back to days at the Ellesmere show, sort of in the background while the Speedway's there. It was all there, a great family night out. We had the jugglers and all that stuff. It was just such a cool experience, such a cool night, and the best promotion at the New Zealand Speedway Awards.
It was, and it was a good reward for a committee that's really going forwards at Speedway at the moment, or Ruapuna. So we turn our attention to this weekend. That's their opening night, effectively. We got cancelled on COVID, but we're lucky enough to be running. Others aren't. What can we expect, and what's actually happening at the track?
Well, I think the big thing is that the Racecourse Hotel and Motor Lodge Speedway is just going to open up, and we're going to have good numbers. I think the opening night is always something really kind of exciting because there's a lot of pent-up frustration from over the winter. There's guys with new gear and girls with the new gear. Again, that youth versus experience, the old dog versus a young pup sort of thing. Mm. And when you start looking across all the classes, there's just going to be battles within battles right to the side of that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the track goes. The new track crew have already reprofiled the racetrack, and it's going to be a smoother racetrack, I would pick this year, and they're dead set on that one lap record going this year. It's only been there for about 14 years. I think it's time it got smacked over for 6.
I think you're right, AJ. That record could go this year with the new track camering, as you were saying, and certainly some good heavyweight races. The Duff Boys and the Bournes and Oscar Harcourt's starting to nudge things now. We may see a new track record sometime this year. Okay, it's on to Crash of the Week, and just a couple of wee incidents in the practice sessions. Our first incident was Sam McCrenna, the 9C TQ. He went for a wee roll at Ruapuna just recently. AJ, tell us what happened here.
Well, you can see McCrenna starting to run around the top part of the racetrack, and he's just coming around the outside of Martin Knight, a new boy to the Speedway. McCrenna's just got out slightly wider, probably reacted a little, because you see that Knight just gets a wee bit of a wiggle on. McCrenna reacted to that, got out into the marbly stuff, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I spoke to his dad, and he was talking about the engine being a little quicker than Sam normally expected. So he was coming up behind Martin at a very fast rate of knots. Nothing too serious there, just rolled it over. I think they busted a shock, so they couldn't race for the rest of the day. But yeah, Sam McCrenna, good young up-and-coming talent, and of course he was the Rhinestone feature winner last year. There's a lot of potential in him. Our next incident to look at comes from the modified sprints, and Shane Cornelius, a rookie last year at Ruapuna Speedway, took his car out to Ellesmere, and AJ, Shane was actually driving pretty aggressively on the day.
Yeah, he certainly loves getting the elbows up and so on. The first thing to consider is the track conditions here. You know, really hot Saturday afternoon, and once you get off the sort of smooth stuff there into the marbles, there's only one place you can end up, and that bit of real estate out there at Ellesmere, boy, it has claimed a few. And you can just see round about here the cars change direction, taking them out, but once you're out there, it's all over Red Rover.
Yeah, a frightening moment for Shane, and his first crash or serious crash of his career. Looks like the car's not too bad there, but after further inspection of the pits afterwards, there was a fair bit of damage, and hopefully we can get Shane at the track this week. So the major supporter of Methanol Madness is Edge Parts and Performance. They're good supporters of Ruapuna Speedway. Last week we took a tour around their store. If you haven't been down to Edge Parts and Performance lately, you won't know about their massive range of performance parts and consumables. They carry stock and parts for speedway, hot rods, drag cars, jet boats, road cars and marine. Catch up with Andrew, Brett or Jenny and they can solve most issues when it comes to performance parts. They're located on Distribution Lane just under the Sockburn Overbridge and they're great supporters of Ruapuna Speedway. Well, it's certainly an impressive store. AJ, have you been down there?
Yeah, I have, down there in Distribution Lane near the Sockburn Overbridge, and it doesn't matter whether you're after stuff for the speedway, the street, the strip, marine stuff, it's all in there. The shelves are just heaving.
Well, the New Zealand Sprint Car Championships is going to be a highlight at Ruapuna Speedway this year, and there's lots to look forward to. AJ, what are your thoughts on Sprint Car Championships and what can our fans expect?
Look, the first thing we've got to get through is all this COVID carry-on. You know, we really need Western Springs to be up and pumping soon so that we can have a good, strong field. I don't think it's any surprise that Stephen Taylor's camping himself in the South Island for a big part of the summer. And Taylor comes with just the complete package, doesn't he? He's a hard charger and so on. Then we start looking at the more experienced guys like Michael Pickens, Jamie McDonald, Dean Brindle. These guys are bound to make the haul down south. The South Island guys, I think, will go into this like Taylor with the laps under their belt. That's going to be a big thing. Raw talent is one thing, but actually not being rusty in the seat is another. So I think it's going to even things up a whole bunch so that the South Island guys are really going to have a chance to shine. And I wouldn't just draw a line under Jamie Duff, because I think the South Island threat this year is huge. We're going to see a fair bit of Matthew Levisage. Connor Rangi has already proven what he's capable of. Then you've got a few dark horses like Caleb Bourne, who's as tough as teak, Sam O'Callaghan. Just keep looking, and there's some real talent going to be at that. It's going to be two very big nights of speedway racing.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm certainly looking forward to the South Island drivers because I think they've got a real decent chance now. The track's been recambered, so it's different for all those North Islanders. And of course, our local favourites are the Duff boys, but as you say, Connor Rangi, I think he's probably one of the standouts. I think he went to Cromwell recently and took out the feature out there, so he's got some early form on the board.
He has. The runs on the board are what it takes. And Jamie Duff, I was talking to Jamie the other day and he said he's just got to get fitter. One of the things that is going to help the South Island guys, Hydrolink War of the Wings feature races this year, 30 laps. And so that extra 5 laps that a national presents isn't that bridge too far for them. You know, a number of years ago when the features were 20 laps, the South Island guys were used to 15 and were just about falling out of the cars after 16 laps. So the gap between the north and south is closing very quickly.
All right, well, we look forward to the 2 days of racing at Ruapuna on the 5th and 6th of February. Well, 2 of our local favourites are Steve Duff Jr. and Jamie Duff, and recently we caught up with the DUFF Motorsport team.
more I could say, but it wouldn't be polite.
If he snored at night, he'd snore sprint car sounds.
Stand on the gas, and I think he loves a good time too.
The balls over brains attitude, I think. Give it shit.
Where he just forgot that there was a corner.
Crashing his brains out and have to fix car.
You're never going to win unless you want it bad enough.
Don't let their looks deceive you. This bunch of guys are deadly serious about sprint car racing, and they have the results to prove it. In fact, DUFF Motorsport is the most successful sprint car team to come out of Ruapuna Speedway. It has won numerous features, championships and titles. Led by Steve Duff Sr., he's serious about the team and has been involved in the sport for almost 40 years.
I love Speedway and I don't mind putting a bit of money in. A lot of guys have yachts, batches. I don't have any of that, you know. My Speedway team is my passion, you know, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I still love the sport, still feel very strongly about sprint cars.
But why sprint cars?
It's just a very raw, honest sport. I mean, the cars have got no electronics on them, power to weight ratio of a Formula 1 car, 100 miles an hour into the turns, and there's quite a lot of driver skill involved with driving them properly, you know. You know, the ability to go down the straight at 100 miles an hour and more or less roll the car into the corner, where a lot of the guys who aren't doing as well tend to chuck it at the corner, use the wing like a big air brake and slow the car up. It takes a lot of bravery and a lot of faith in the car to roll it into the corner without slowing it up too much, which is where a lot of the corner speed comes from.
Their number one driver is Jamie Duff. He's fast, smooth and a local sprint car star. He struck gold early in his career and took out the New Zealand Sprint Car Championship in 2015.
One of the greatest experiences of my life. Just standing there dumbfounded, didn't quite believe it at the time, and looking back, it's something really special.
So what is it that the Duff man enjoys about sprint car racing?
The speed, the adrenaline rush, the freedom when you're out there. There's no one else out there to tell you what to do other than referees.
The DUFF Motorsport number 2 driver is younger brother Steve Jr. He's fearless, bordering on the reckless, and has an attitude similar to 70s F1 star James Hunt.
Now, James, they've changed the regulations concerning the airboxes and the wings, and yet you're still extremely fast. How do you do it?
Big balls.
So why do they call Steve Jr. the gas man?
The balls over brains attitude, I think. Give it shit.
While he's exciting to watch, Junior has had his fair share of learning experiences.
I'd have to say Western Springs 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a big learning experience. I just came out of the corner and didn't straighten up quick enough and ran a wheel and just did a few rolls down the straight.
Next member on the team is Big Jeff. He's been around forever and has seen 2 generations of racer at DUFF Motorsport.
Helped Steve out while he was racing, and then Steve came and seen me and said, you're interested in moving on and helping Jamie out, and I've been with Jamie since the day he started.
With 20 years in the game, turning spanners, what's the thrill for Big Jeff?
You work on the car and you work on setups and that, and then you go out and see Jamie drive it and do things in the car that you think can't be done, and it's quite a thrill for the whole team to see the driver go well.
Next up, Cameron Cairns, aka Lumpy Cam. He's another crewman who's been around for a while.
I think I've been around sprint cars 18 years now, so I don't see it stopping anytime soon. You know, every year things change, cars develop, technology changes, and it's just, you know, what are we going to do next to go faster?
So what's it like working for the very successful DUFF Motorsport team under Steve Sr.?
Hard, but, you know, fair. You know exactly where you stand with him all the time. I think, you know, if he snored at night, he'd snore sprint car sounds. He just absolutely loves racing. You know, everything's about racing. So, and he drives us to be the best we can, and we, you know, do our best to be there.
Slim, he's been around for a number of years, brings a great attitude, and helps the team out where he can.
My name's Slim. That's all it is. That's what I'm called. That's what it is. My role in the team is just basically general body, do as I'm told. Yeah.
And finally, Smooth Cam. He's the latest addition to the team and works well under all conditions.
Started late last year, and yeah, just love it. So,
what do you make of it all?
Good. Love the stress. Love when it goes well, but it's a little bit of fun when it goes bad too.
So that's some of the team. They live for sprint car racing, give up their summers chasing dirt, and wouldn't have it any other way. But why is the team so successful?
They're pretty passionate about what they do. They don't like coming second, which I think's, you know, it's not that they're bad sportsmen. They, you know, they don't skite, they don't sulk, but you know, you you're never going to win unless you want it bad enough. So they definitely want to go out there and prove themselves, which is nice. And they're both reasonably talented, which I'm lucky with.
We've been doing it so long, there's a lot of research goes into the cars, and me and Jamie bounce ideas off each other for driving styles, and it just works for the best.
Pretty much if he goes out and then doesn't drive the car hard, he knows about it because we tell him.
I was never shy about passing, and you want to be a race car driver, be a race car driver, but you give it 10 attempts. You can never tell your kids to win races because that's not fair, but you can certainly tell them to give it 10 attempts.
So the team has the right attitude, and the New Zealand Sprint Car title is happening at Ruapuna Speedway this season. What are the chances of DUFF Motorsport?
It's our home track, New Zealand champs. I think Stephen is an unknown quantity this year. I don't know how he's going to go, but we've made a big effort with his car and his head. Jamie, there's 4 guys in New Zealand I consider that are slightly better than Jamie. Not better, that's the wrong word. Slightly faster because they race each other every week at Western Springs. We were going to go out there and race with them to get our intensity level up, which is all we had to do. COVID's changed with that. They might have to come down here now, but home track advantage. If we can get him, he's got to the point where he's reasonably dominant here, and he'll cruise around for a couple of laps, look at the track, then decide to go. If he's got these 4 guys here, he won't have that luxury. He'll have to pull the trigger hard and go hard, or we won't get anywhere. So we'll be working on that this season, heading into the New Zealand champs.
So come February 5th and 6th at Ruapuna Speedway, fans of DUFF Motorsport will be cheering and supporting both Jamie and Steve to a podium in the New Zealand Sprint Car Championship. Well, with the New Zealand Sprint Car title only months away, we decided to dig into the archives. And AJ, what have you dragged out for us?
Well, this is a 1983-84 New Zealand Sprint Car Championship. It was a red letter occasion for us. The stadium was full. It was a hot nor'west Sunday, that much I can remember. And Roger Gleeson, who had done so much for so many years and bringing the standard of sprint car racing right up there with the rest of the world in the South Island, he dominated.
They're side by side on the back of the grid, Roger Gleeson and Barry Butterworth. Which one are you picking, Willie?
Well, as I said before, Barry Butterworth has to be the hot favourite. He's won features at Sacramento in California in the toughest competition of the world. I don't see why he can't win this one now, but that car of Gleeson's is so fast, he's really learning the ropes. It could be anybody's race.
A certain amount of it will be luck, of course, and how well they get through the traffic. They're away, they've got to start. Let's have a look and see how long it takes these 2 back markers to get through the field. Already almost in contact in the dust. Going over the inside, dropping his front wheel on the ground was Barry Butterworth, but they're getting up there quickly. Gleeson getting all sideways. Oh, lots of shunts and bumps in there. Gleeson going down the outside. Let's have a look at it.
Roger Gleeson's got a car between he and Barry Butterworth now. He made a good move around the outside of some of that traffic. When the dust of the sun glare held him up there a little bit, he took that to advantage. Yellow flag. We've got a tangle down here between Tony Allen and Roger Bertram in turn 2. The old saying goes in this one, if you snooze, you lose. And I've seen Roger Gleeson having a look over his shoulder to make sure that Barry Butterworth is right behind him. He won't be letting anyone get away with anything unless he can help it.
It means that they're back down to turn 4. Look at the brake as they get the green. Barry Butterworth up on the outside. Gleeson up on the outside. Butterworth trying to go down inside now. That's still together. Gleeson going past Bruce Hobbs. Can't do it that time. Surely it's only a matter of time. Butterworth coming up on him. Championship resting on this race.
Roger moved underneath Bruce Hobbs. Barry Butterworth is trying to get under him also on the same corner, down the straightaway, and he didn't quite make it. That's certainly going to give him a bit of an advantage.
Once we don't have a yellow flag situation before the end of the race, that might just be the mate that Roger Gleeson needed. Barry Butterworth just being held up a little behind Bruce Hobbs. He's through now, but he's got that gap to get up on Roger Gleeson. If Roger Gleeson wins the race, he wins the championship. Same for Barry Butterworth. These 2 equal on points. Barry Butterworth's got the job ahead of them, though.
Roger Gleeson's not putting a foot wrong here. He's really showing some experience. He's showing how he can handle that beautiful gambler, smoking the tyre coming off the corner, and he's actually opening up a little bit of a gap from Barry Butterworth.
So Barry Butterworth really has got the job ahead of him now. seems to lose it in that turn at the top end.
Roger Leeson starting the lap traffic now. If Barry can box him in with some of the slower cars, this will be the only advantage, the only break to be waiting for. But it looks as if Roger's handling these cars extremely well. Underneath them, outside them, past them as he comes to them. No problem whatsoever.
Barry Butterworth not held up in the traffic. He got through at the same time. Gleeson still leading. The white flag for Roger Gleeson this time round. So Barry Butterworth has got to try and catch him in half a lap. It looks like the championship will be Roger Gleeson's. Coming round this time, Barry Butterworth getting it wide out. All fired up, coming round to the last lap. Flag marshal out with a checkered flag now. Coming down to the line, it's Roger Gleeson, and the local crowd goes mad. Roger Gleeson wins the National Sprint Car Championship from Barry Butterworth. And what a popular victory with the big crowd in Christchurch. The winner of the National Sprint Car Championship for 1984. Tony Allen won it last year. Roger Bertram was third. Lance Wood was second. Roger Gleeson was third way back in 1982. He's never won it before, but he's getting a tremendous reception from the local Christchurch crowd. Their hero, he had already in the last couple of weeks beaten Barry Butterworth. They've had a number of tussles, but Roger Gleeson had beaten him fair and square, and once again he got the break, and he has beaten Barry Butterworth for the New Zealand Sprint Car title.
What a treat that was, 1984 Sprint Car title. Man, how many people were at Ruapuna that day? Another driver capable of giving the big guns a fright is Caleb Bourne. He's one of the local heroes at Ruapuna Speedway, and he joins us in the studio today. Good to see you, Caleb, and tell us a wee bit about your career and how did you eventually get into sprint cars?
Started off in the modified sprints and sort of hung around there for a few years and moved up to the old sprint car and been there for about 5 seasons now.
Well, we do remember you going pretty well in the sprint, the modified sprint years ago, and you had that hypercar going very well, winning many feature races. Tell us about the transition. You go from a modified sprint, 200 horsepower, you jump into a sprinter.
Yeah, and they honestly they behave quite the same, just the way they work and get down. You know, they sort of behave the same in a way, but obviously the sprint car is a bit more powerful.
Tell us about your first year in sprint cars. Any frightening moments? How did it all play out?
Nothing that stands out. I think I had one down the front straight, but it's not too much for me, I suppose.
So we're used to Caleb and Ray's name being at the track, but there are other family members that have raced there as well. Yeah,
Granddad was there for a bit, and obviously me and the old man, and my girlfriend Courtney races, and it all just sort of keeps in the family.
I think last year was probably one of your better seasons with the sprint cars. You took out the War of the Wings final. Tell me about the season and how you managed to win it.
Yeah, honestly, man, it was one of our best, well, it is the best season we've had so far, you know, coming away with that title, but I didn't really go in expecting too much and just sort of keep things consistent, and we got to Nelson and we sort of thought we were in for a shot for a podium, you know, and then Jamie had motor problems and Matt stopped on the track and it all sort of just fell together in one weekend, and I was a bag of nerves all week, you know, I couldn't work and I was battling, you know, but to come away with that for my guys and for my old man, you know, they all work hard, really hard for me just to go round and round, you know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Speedway is that way, isn't it? A lot of dedicated people helping out and stuff, and you've got some pretty good sponsors on board. Tell me about your new car. Looks great, by the way.
Thanks,
the sign job. Who's been supporting you for the last few years?
We've had a few sponsors come and go, you know, as it does with Speedway. It's hard to get someone to put their name on a car, but Brian Humm Contracting and Bowater Motor Group have been on the car since day one, you know. They have supported us for a long time now, and it's been really cool. Arbortech and Edge Parts Performance are coming on this season, and it's cool to be able to show the car off and have their name on the car, you know.
Well, you turned a few laps at Ruapuna on practice day. Any thoughts? Did the car feel good?
Yeah, the car felt good. You know, it's hard at practice. The track's never prepped as what it'd be on race night, but yeah, we'll see how we go.
Tell me about the New Zealand Sprint Car title. What's your thoughts? How do you approach it? I mean, it's at your home ground now.
It is. Yeah, it's going to be a big old night, man. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm going to be happy just to make the show with the amount of cars that are going to turn up. You know, anything better will be a bonus.
He had some experience racing some of the big guns. I think Jonathan Allard was racing in Nelson last year, and of course Stephen Taylor and a few others were flying around there. What's it like when the big guns come to Christchurch? Does it change for you, or?
Yeah, it does, yeah. You know you're going to get beat, but more, but it's just, the experience is something you can't buy to race with those guys, you know, and just following them around is a cool opportunity to have, you know.
Well, look, that's Caleb Bourne. He's one of the favourites down at Ruapuna Speedway, and we hope he goes well at the New Zealand Sprint Car Championship. Thanks for coming in, Caleb. It's good to get your insights in the sprint car world. And for the fans of the Caleb Bourne race team, you can see him down at Ruapuna. And, of course, the big one for him will be the New Zealand Sprint Car Championship later this season. Well, with racing starting this Saturday, we thought we might just touch on each of the classes. And, AJ, what are your thoughts on the quarter midgets?
They just continue to grow, and it's just so exciting seeing the kids start off as raw novices and develop the skills and so on. Jack Brownlee's is probably going to be the guy that will set the pace for most of the season, but I'm just picking that some of these other kids are going to just continue to grow and grow. A lot of competition. They go up and race at Nelson. Plenty of racing for them, and it's laps that count. Two kids I'm really looking forward to seeing going are the Everett boys. They're the grandchildren of Selwyn Everett, and boy, they've got a lot of motivation behind them, and a great motivator.
They certainly have. For me, Ethan Smith's actually started off the season pretty well. He won 2 races out at Ellesmere. Jack Brownlee's did beat him in the feature, but I think Ethan actually had some motor issues. But as you say, Jack Brownlee's could dominate. I think he went to Nelson recently and took out the feature there. Okay, the next class we'll look at is the TQs, the 750cc pocket rockets. What are your thoughts, AJ?
Big field of the, what do they call them? The flips and photo finishes class. New Zealand TQ champion Jeremy Webb will again take a lot of beating, but never ever write off his long-time rivals Liam McCoubrey and Kyle Glover. Ben Morgan is one young guy that I'm so looking forward to seeing when the heat really starts getting turned up. This kid is just so capable.
Yeah, I watched Ben out at Ellesmere recently, and he certainly wasn't backing off. And with Liam McCoubrey stepping into the midget this year, it's difficult to know how many races Liam will participate in the TQs. But Ben Morgan and the other one for me, Sam McCrenna. He's got a flying machine this year, and he's certainly not scared to put his foot into it. The next class is the modified sprints. What are your thoughts on that?
Modified sprints starting to get some numbers. The Avon Insurance team are really going to take some beating. Benny Gilmore, I would imagine that he'll surface again at some stage. Remember, Gilmore came out, did one show last year and won their big Clay Cup. Kieran Harris, quite likely to be there or thereabouts, I would expect. Just another open book, the modified sprint class.
Yeah, the Avon Insurance team are fielding 3 cars this year, and of course Alan Daly, he's certainly spending plenty of money on the class. For me, it was Jaden Basley actually come down for practice, and he put some great laps in. And I see Neville Basley might be running a modified sprint this year. So of course we know Neville is a midget car driver, but we might see him in the 7C car competing.
Yeah, I think you'll find that both of those two guys, they will be the dark horses on it. And young Jaden showed us last year what he's capable of, fast and furious.
Well, the next class is the V6 wingless sprints, and I think the regular guys there that stand out, Peter Keith, Andrew Gregg. Any thoughts on it from you?
Yeah, Shooter Hawkins, he's another one there, isn't he? Our old mate Shooter, you know, he just gets in there, gets the job done. Just remember Andrew Gregg last year started the season off so strongly, didn't he? Andrew Marker, bit of an unknown force, but Chris Gemmett, I believe, coming back into the class, and he's going to add some thunder to it. And also we're going to see some of the cars from down south, and later in the season a few from up north as well. So a lot to look forward to with the wingless sprints. Yeah,
I was pretty impressed with Andrew Marker. He did some tidy laps on practice day. Of course, he's an ex-TQ driver, so I think he's in the 54C or 51C it might be. So looking forward to his progress. Of course, as you say, Peter Keith and Andrew Gregg, pretty strong competitors in the V6 wingless sprints. Midgets, that's a great class. We always like the midgets. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm actually expecting them to continue putting on the best racing. It's not going to be the fastest, but it is going to be the best. It's going to be so close. Really looking forward to later in the season when Tom Lumsden debuts that new XR8. That's a homemade New Zealand car. But just start thinking back to what we saw last year. Slide jobs, it was just action right across the board. Glenn Jury, I thought he was a bit subdued last year, but I think he's ready for a big one. The old dogs, Dave Kerr, Neville Basley, but Jack Lowe, to me, is the one I'm really going to watch this year. Took out the South Island Championship last season, and that was not a mistake. He just dominated that whole thing. So when you start throwing in some of the other guys, it's going to be really, really good. Shane Clark coming back, let's see how he goes. It's going to be a real equal sort of field.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like Jack Lowe also, and that trip to Auckland last year up in Western Springs really sorted him out. He wrecked a couple of cars, but man, he come back a lot stronger. And of course, the one we mentioned before, Liam McCoubrey. How exciting is that for our 2NZ TQ driver to go midget car racing? A lot of expectation on him, and hopefully he doesn't get too overwhelmed by it.
I think he'll be fine. You know, he's a pretty settled young guy. One of the things I've always thought is that TQ drivers make excellent midget car drivers and then become very good sprint car drivers because they're used to racing with a lot of throttle control and a little bit of brake here and there. McCoubrey's going to bring a real steadiness to the seat of the Everett team. Yep. He's also pretty crafty. Selwyn Everett, I think, has pulled an ace from out of his sleeve on that one.
He was pretty smooth on practice day on a pretty tricky track, so lots to look out for there, forwards to there. And the other guy I was impressed by was Sean Shilton. First time in a midget for him, and he went pretty well. He did break a brake rotor and he had to stop, but he got some tidy laps in as well.
Yep, exciting stuff for Sean.
And finally, the sprint cars. Man, what do we say about the sprint cars? Lots happening with the New Zealand title happening here in February. Big fields and a few stars there as well.
Yeah, you know, the sprint cars, I think that it's not going to be dominated quite as much by Jamie Duff this year. You know, the Duff man certainly will be the one at the top of the tree I'm picking, but we're going to see a few of the South Island guys starting to travel, and already they've got that Southern Series cranked up down on the bottom part of the South Island. This weekend we've got the first round of the Dalton Summer Slam, and so there's a lot at stake this year. And one thing that has crossed my mind is the fact that the South Island guys are racing for some really good money. We've got the Hydrolink War of the Wings Series about 70 grand, the Southern Series about 40, the Daltons is about 10, and so there's some really good money out there right now. Steve Duff Jr. is one that I'm really looking forward to seeing in action because, well, they've got the Duff man in the team and the Gas man, and he knows that. Never write off the Bournes, Ray Bourne. You know, he's been around Speedway longer than the Prison Bend has been there. And his son Caleb, a real talent, that kid. Yeah. And I think Ray probably mows the lawns on more Sundays than Caleb if the results determine who's on the mower.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly lots to watch out in the sprint cars. And as you say, the Duff boys, Steve Duff Jr. is exciting. He's just almost reckless on the track, and he's always got the wheels up, which is exciting for the crowd. But Jamie is a bit more skillful. He's a bit more smoother and probably has a lot more racecraft.
Yeah, he's got that big night temperament as well. Another guy I'm so looking forward to seeing back in action is Jaden Dodge. Yeah. Jaden's returning, and he brings a real sort of attitude to the whole thing, doesn't he? You know, former New Zealand V8 Ute racer, went so well in sprint cars a number of seasons ago, stood back from it, and he's back in there, and he has said to me he's after Wakeling's record.
Hey, that's good to hear. Well, that's our preview of all the classes, and we look forward to our first opening night, which is happening this Saturday at Ruapuna. What are your final thoughts on opening night at Ruapuna, AJ?
Well, the winter's behind us now, isn't it? You know, a Saturday night at Ruapuna Speedway is just like a nor'wester in the summer. You know it's going to happen, and you know that you're going to enjoy it.
That's great. Well, look, that's our first episode of Methanol Madness. We're going to continue this every week as we have race meetings. So tune into our Facebook page and our web page, and you can catch up with Methanol Madness.